Mara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She stood in the bookstore, middle of the day, people everywhere, shopping, browsing, living normal lives. But Mara, she was dying inside. In her hands, a book. Not just any book, a bestseller. Number 3 on the New York Times list. The Shattered Mind, Real Stories of Trauma and Recovery by Dr. Vincent Shaw. Her therapist. She opened to page 47, started reading, and her stomach dropped. The patient, we'll call her M, couldn't cross bridges. Every time she tried, she'd pull over and throw up. Her mother had jumped off a bridge when she was 16. Yellow cookbook, apple pie recipe. That's where the note was hidden. Mara's mother, Mara's story, Mara's secret. The yellow cookbook, the apple pie page. Details she'd never told anyone except him. Her fingers moved faster, flipping pages, finding herself again and again. Page 63, her first marriage, the abuse, the broken blue mug her grandmother gave her. Page 91, her eating disorder, the cuts on her thighs she'd hidden for years. Page 126, the night she almost didn't wake up. Pills, bathtub, the darkness she'd crawled out of. Every single session, every secret, every piece of her broken heart. Sold for $24.95. The book slipped from her hands, hit the floor. People looked. Mara didn't care, because she finally understood. The person paid to heal her had been using her the whole time, mining her pain like gold, and she'd never seen it coming. This is a story about trust. The kind of trust we give to people with diplomas on their walls, people with licenses, people who promise they're safe. Doctors, therapists, counselors, the helpers. We tell them things we'd never tell our best friends, our darkest fears, our deepest shame. We hand them maps to our breaking points and say, please, help me. And most of them do help. They hold our pain like it's precious. They guard our secrets like treasure. But some don't. Some see our wounds and think content, career, cash. Some turn our therapy sessions into research, our confessions into case studies, our private hell into their public success. And the worst part is, it's legal. Mostly. Mara Sutton thought she was getting help. 18 months of therapy, 72 sessions, thousands of dollars, hundreds of tears. She thought she was healing. She was wrong. She was being harvested. And by the time she realized it, her entire life story was in bookstores across America, changed just enough to avoid lawsuits, but not enough to avoid recognition. Not enough to avoid devastation. This is the story of how the person supposed to fix Mara broke her instead. How a therapist with a Yale degree and warm smile weaponized vulnerability. And how Mara discovered that sometimes the most dangerous person in your life wears a professional title and carries a notepad.
Before we go deeper, take 1 second to subscribe. It helps this channel survive these dark investigations. And tell me, where in the world are you listening from? I always check the comments. Let me tell you about Mara Sutton. 34 years old, emergency room nurse, someone who'd spent her whole adult life helping other people. She'd held dying patients' hands, told parents their child didn't survive,
pumped chests knowing the person was already gone. Trauma? She'd seen it all. In others. But her own trauma? That she kept locked away. Deep inside, where no one could see. Mara grew up in Portland. Only child. Her mother, Catherine, was beautiful, artistic, painted landscapes that looked like dreams. But Catherine had something else too. A darkness. What doctors now called bipolar disorder. Back then people just called it moods. Good days? Catherine would dance in the kitchen, make pancakes shaped like hearts, sing old songs. Bad days, she'd lock herself in a room, sometimes for days. Young Mara would slide food under the door, do homework alone, teach herself how to be quiet, how to not need anyone. When Mara was 16, her mother tried to die. Pills in the bathtub. Mara found her, called 911, saved her life. Catherine survived, went to the hospital, came home, said she was sorry, said she'd never do it again. 2 years later, she drove her car off a bridge. No note this time, no warning, just gone. Mara was 18. Started nursing school 3 months later. If she couldn't save her mother, maybe she could save someone else. She married young, 23, a man named Derek. Handsome, charming, said all the right things. Then one night he said the wrong thing. She disagreed. He slapped her. Flowers the next day, tears. I'm so sorry. It'll never happen again. But it did happen again, and again, until Mara stopped counting. She left him after 3 years, moved to a new city, started over, buried the memories, focused on work, built walls so high nothing could hurt her, but walls don't heal wounds. They just hide them. At 34, Mara was good at her job. Great even. But inside, she was drowning. Panic attacks in her car after work. Nightmares about bridges. Couldn't eat some days. Ate too much others. Cuts on her thighs she made when the pressure got too bad. She knew she needed help. Finally. So she found Dr. Vincent Shaw. Dr. Vincent Shaw, 52 years old, PhD from Yale, published researcher, trauma specialist. His office was perfect. Old Victorian house converted to a therapy space. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, plants everywhere. One of those salt lamps glowing orange in the corner. On the walls, his degrees, articles he'd written, awards he'd won. He looked like what a therapist should look like. Glasses, kind eyes, calm voice, sweater over button-up shirt. Safe. His website said, specializing in complex trauma, PTSD, and family systems. Every patient's story is sacred. Complete confidentiality. This is your space to heal. Mara read those words and felt hope for the first time in years. She called, made an appointment. First session, Dr. Shaw smiled. Welcome, Mara. This is a judgment-free space. Whatever you share here stays here. That's not just policy. It's sacred ground. You're safe here. Mara believed him. Why wouldn't she? He had the credentials, the experience, the reviews, 5 stars. Patients called him life-changing and the therapist who finally understood. He seemed perfect. And maybe that should have been the first red flag. Because nothing perfect is real.
The first few sessions were surface level.
Mara talked about work stress, sleep problems. Nothing deep. Dr. Shaw listened, took notes in his leather journal, asked gentle questions. What do you think your insomnia is protecting you from? Where in your body do you feel that anxiety? Tell me about your earliest memory of feeling unsafe. Week by week, Mara opened up, like peeling an onion, layer by layer. She told him about her mother, the locked bedroom doors, the quiet house, the feeling of being alone even when Catherine was there. Dr. Shaw nodded, wrote in his journal, "That must have been terrifying for a child." "It was," Mara whispered. "You learned early that you couldn't depend on others, that you had to save yourself." Mara cried, because it was true, and no one had ever said it out loud before. Sessions became the highlight of Mara's week. Tuesday at 4 o'clock, every week, rain or shine. She told Dr. Shaw about her marriage, the first slap, the apologies, the flowers, the cycle. "Why did you stay?" he asked. No judgment in his voice, just curiosity. "I thought I could fix him. I thought if I just loved him better." "You learned that from your mother. Love as sacrifice, love as suffering." Mara nodded. She'd never connected those dots before. Dr. Shaw was good, really good. He helped her see patterns, make connections, understand herself. Or at least that's what it felt like. Around month 6, Mara noticed something small. During a session, she'd mentioned a detail about her ex-husband, how he'd broken her favorite mug, blue ceramic, from her grandmother. Dr. Shaw wrote it down, then looked up. "Tell me more about that mug. Why did it matter so much?" Mary explained. It was the only thing she had left of her grandmother, the only reminder of someone who'd loved her unconditionally. And he broke it, destroying your connection to safe love. "I never thought of it that way." Dr. Shaw smiled. "That's why you're here, to see what you can't see alone." The detail stuck with Mara. How much attention he'd paid, how he'd asked her to elaborate, almost like, no. She pushed the thought away. He was being thorough. That's what good therapists do, right? Month 9. Mara was deep in therapy now, talking about the darkest stuff. The suicide attempt she'd had at 25. Pills, bathtub, just like her mother. "I woke up in the hospital, alone. I'd told everyone I had the flu." "You even kept your suicide attempt secret," Dr. Shaw said softly. "That's how thoroughly you learned that your pain was a burden." Mara sobbed, ugly crying, the kind where you can't breathe. Dr. Shaw handed her tissues, waited. When she calmed down, he said, "Thank you for trusting me with this. I know how hard that was." Mara felt seen. Finally, seen. What she didn't know, Dr. Shaw was already planning which chapter this would fit into. Month 12, Mara talked about her bridge phobia, how she'd drive 40 minutes out of her way to avoid them, how sometimes she'd have to pull over and throw up. "It's not just about your mother," Dr. Shaw said. "It's about choice. Your mother chose the bridge. Part of you is terrified you'll make the same choice." Mara's breath caught. She'd never thought about it that way. Our fears are often more complex than they appear. There's always layers. Dr. Shaw wrote extensively in his journal that day. Whole paragraphs. Mara noticed but didn't ask why. Maybe she should have. Month 15. Something shifted. Mara came in for her session. Dr. Shaw seemed distracted, kept checking his phone, finally apologized. "Sorry, my publisher is pressing me for the final manuscript. I'm writing a book." "Oh wow, that's exciting. What's it about?" "Case studies, real stories of trauma and recovery. Anonymized, of course. It's important work, showing people that healing is possible." Mara smiled. "That's amazing. I'm sure it'll help a lot of people." "I hope so," Dr. Shaw said. Then he looked at her. Really looked at her. "Your journey has been remarkable, Mara. The progress you've made, you should be proud. I couldn't have done it without you. We did it together," he said. Together. That word would haunt Mara later, because together means both people agreed. And Mara never agreed to become a chapter.
Month 16. Mara noticed Dr. Shaw asking more specific questions. "Tell me again about the cookbook. Where exactly did you find your mother's note?" "In the kitchen, tucked inside her recipe book, on the apple pie page." Apple pie, was that significant? "It was her favorite. She'd make it every Sunday when I was little, before things got bad." Dr. Shaw wrote that down, underlined it. "And the cookbook itself, describe it." Yellow cover, stained, old, from the 70s, I think." More writing, more underlining. Mara felt something uncomfortable in her chest, a tightness. "Why are you asking about these details?" Dr. Shaw looked up, smiled. "Details matter in trauma work. They anchor the memory, help us process it fully." It sounded right, made sense, but something still felt off. Month 17. Dr. Shaw started using different language, clinical language. "Your case is fascinating. The intergenerational transmission of suicidal ideation combined with complex PTSD from intimate partner violence. It's textbook and unique at the same time." "My case?" "Your journey," he corrected quickly. "Sorry, occupational hazard. Sometimes I slip into research mode." Research mode. Mara let it slide, but the discomfort grew. The last month, month 18, Mara made a breakthrough. She drove over a bridge, a small one, but still. Didn't pull over, didn't throw up, just drove. She came to her session excited, almost giddy. "I did it! I actually did it!" Dr. Shaw smiled, big, genuine smile. "Mara, that's incredible! Tell me everything. What did you feel? What were you thinking?" She described it all, the fear, the nausea, the moment she decided to keep going, the rush of pride when she made it to the other side. Dr. Shaw took notes the entire time, detailed notes. "This is remarkable progress. You've come so far, from someone who couldn't even look at a bridge to someone who can cross them. That's transformative. I couldn't have done it without you." "Well," Dr. Shaw said, leaning back, "I'd love to feature your success in my book, obviously anonymized, but stories like yours, they give people hope." Mara froze. "Feature me?" "Your journey, not you specifically. I'd change identifying details. It's completely standard in therapeutic literature." I don't know." "Think about it. No pressure.
But imagine if your story helped even one person. Wouldn't that make your suffering meaningful? Mara felt pressure in her chest. This felt wrong, but also maybe if it helped people. I need to think about it, she said. Of course, take your time, but there was something in his eyes, a flash of something. Annoyance? Disappointment? It was gone so fast, Mara thought she had imagined it. That was their last session. 2 weeks later, Dr. Shaw's office called. Dr. Shaw is taking a sabbatical. He's canceled all patient appointments for the next 3 months. What? Why didn't he tell me? It was sudden, a professional opportunity. He apologizes for the inconvenience. But my sessions, I'm in the middle of... We can refer you to another therapist on staff. I don't want another therapist. I want Dr. Shaw. I understand, but he's unavailable. Would you like that referral? Mara hung up, sat in her car, felt abandoned again. The pattern of her life. People leaving. For 2 months, Mara tried to function, went to work, came home, felt the walls closing in. She thought about calling Dr. Shaw's office, demanding answers, but she felt stupid, needy. Maybe this was part of therapy, learning to be independent. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe... Then came the bookstore. Mara stood in that bookstore, book at her feet, page 47 staring up at her. Her mother's suicide. Her story. In print. People were staring. Probably thought she was having a breakdown. They were right. She picked up the book with shaking hands, flipped to the back. Author bio. Photo of Dr. Shaw looking professional, accomplished. Dr. Vincent Shaw has over 20 years of experience treating complex trauma. This is his 3rd book. He lives in Portland with his wife and 2 children. Wife and 2 children. She didn't even know he was married. 18 months of sessions, thousands of dollars, hours of her life, and she didn't even know basic facts about him. Because therapy isn't supposed to be about the therapist. She knew that. It's about the patient. But now she wondered, did he ever see her as a patient? Or was she always just research? Mara opened the front cover. Dedication page. For my patients, who trusted me with their pain. Your courage makes this work possible. Your courage. Like they'd volunteered. Like this was collaboration. Mara turned to the acknowledgments. Special thanks to the individuals whose stories appear in these pages. While details have been altered to protect privacy, the core truths remain. Their healing journeys light the way for others. And that's when Mara realized the worst part. She never said yes. She'd said she needed to think about it. He published her anyway. Mara bought the book, drove home, called in sick to work. She sat on her bathroom floor, read every single page. Chapter 1, The Weight of Inheritance. About a woman whose mother had bipolar disorder, who became a nurse, who learned to be invisible. That was Mara. Chapter 3, The Bridge Between Life and Death. About the yellow cookbook, the apple pie recipe, the daughter who found her mother's note. That was Mara. Chapter 5, Love as Violence. About the blue ceramic mug, the grandmother's gift, the husband who broke it, the woman who stayed anyway. That was Mara. Chapter 7, Cutting to Feel. About self-harm, thighs, hidden scars, the release of pain through pain. That was Mara. Chapter 10, The Bathtub Decision. About pills, about waking up in a hospital, about the lie of having the flu. That was Mara. He changed surface details, made her a social worker instead of a nurse, made her ex-husband a lawyer instead of an accountant, made her mother jump instead of drive off the bridge. But the bones, the emotional truth, the specific, intimate details, all Mara. Anyone who knew her would know. Her ex-husband would know, her co-workers, her friends. He'd changed names and changed enough details to call it an anonymized. But it wasn't anonymous. Not really. It was Mara's entire life, repackaged and sold. The worst part? The way he wrote about her. Clinical, detached, like she was a specimen under a microscope. Patient M exhibited classic signs of complex PTSD with comorbid depression and self-harm behaviors. Her attachment style was avoidant anxious, likely stemming from early childhood neglect. Patient M. Not Mara, not a person, a case study, an example, a point to prove. Mara's hands shook as she read the final chapter, The Breakthrough. It was about her driving over the bridge, her moment of triumph, of healing. Patient M's ability to confront her phobia demonstrated significant therapeutic progress. Through careful guidance and evidence-based interventions, she moved from avoidance to approach. This case illustrates the effectiveness of on and on, technical language, professional distance. Her pain, his resume. Mara's hands shook as she read the final chapter. And Mara threw the book across the bathroom. It hit the wall, fell into the tub. She pulled out her phone, shaking, angry. Found Dr. Shaw's office number. Dialed. Thank you for calling Healing Path Therapy. This is Jennifer. I need to speak to Dr. Shaw. Now. I'm sorry, Dr. Shaw is still on sabbatical. Tell him Mara called. Tell him I read his book. Tell him if he doesn't call me back in 1 hour, I'm going to the state licensing board. Silence. Then, I'll pass along the message. Mara hung up, stared at her phone. 37 minutes later, it rang. Mara? Dr. Shaw's voice. Calm, professional, like they were in session. Jennifer said you sounded upset. Upset? Upset? You used me. You published my entire life without asking. Mara, I understand your feeling. Don't therapize me right now. Don't try your calm voice and make me think I'm being irrational. Pause. When he spoke again, his voice was cooler. Mara, you're following all ethical guidelines. The consent form you signed at intake covered use of clinical data for research and publication. What consent form? The standard intake paperwork. Page 3. Client agrees that anonymized clinical information may be used for research, teaching, and publication purposes. Mara's stomach dropped. She'd signed that. Day 1. A stack of papers. She'd barely read them. They'd seemed standard. That doesn't give you the right to put my mother's suicide in a book. The details were changed. Not enough. My ex-husband will recognize that story. My co-workers, anyone who knows me will know. Dr. Shaw's voice changed. Got harder. Mara, you're catastrophizing. No one will connect you to this. And frankly, this book helps people. Your story, the therapeutic work we did, it shows others that healing is possible. You should be grateful. Grateful. That word. That one word. Mara laughed. Not a happy laugh, a laugh that sounded like breaking. Grateful? You want me to be grateful that you turned my trauma into your career advancement? I gave you tools to heal. I spent 18 months helping you. You spent 18 months harvesting me. I'm going to the licensing board, Mara said quietly. I'm filing a complaint, and I'm getting a lawyer. That would be unwise, Dr. Shaw said. You signed a consent form. You have no case. All you'll do is draw attention to yourself. Is that really what you want? Your entire story becoming public record in a legal battle? The threat was clear, wrapped in professional concern, but a threat nonetheless. Mara hung up, sat on her bathroom floor, and cried until she couldn't breathe.
The next day, Mara filed a complaint with the State Board of Licensed Psychologists. She wrote everything. The sessions, the book, the lack of real consent, the recognizable details. She attached copies of the book, highlighted every section that was clearly her. She hit submit and waited. Weeks passed. Then a letter arrived. Thank you for your complaint. The board takes all reports seriously. We have opened an investigation. You will be contacted if we need additional information. More weeks. More waiting. Mara tried to move on. Went back to work, avoided bookstores, deleted social media. Dr. Shaw's book was everywhere. People at work talked about it. Have you read The Shattered Mind? It's so good. Really makes you think about therapy. Mara would smile, say no, change the subject. Meanwhile, she was falling apart. Panic attacks daily, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, started cutting again. Just to feel something other than rage and betrayal. She had gone to therapy to heal. Now she was worse than when she started. 3 months later, another letter from the board. Mara's hand shook as she opened it. After a thorough investigation, the board has determined that while Dr. Shaw's actions raise ethical concerns, they do not constitute a violation of confidentiality statutes. The client's identity was sufficiently obscured through the use of pseudonyms and altered details. However, Dr. Shaw has been advised to obtain more explicit, detailed consent forms in future cases. This matter is now closed. That was it? Ethical concerns? Advised to do better? A slap on the wrist. Dr. Shaw kept his license, kept his practice, his book stayed on shelves, kept selling. And Mara? Mara got a letter saying, "We're sorry, but technically he didn't break the law." She hired a lawyer. A good one. Expensive. They reviewed her case, read the intake forms, read the book, compared them side by side. "I'm sorry," the lawyer said. "You signed the consent form, and he did change enough details that proving it specifically you would be nearly impossible. We could sue, but honestly, you'd probably lose. And even if you won, it would take years, cost hundreds, maybe hundreds of thousands." So he just gets away with it? I'm afraid so. The law protects healthcare providers pretty heavily. It's designed that way. For good reasons usually, but sometimes the wrong person gets protected.
Mara went home, looked at her options. All of them bad. Fight a legal battle she'd probably lose, go broke and traumatized for nothing, or walk away. Let him win. Let her story stay on shelves with his name on the cover. She couldn't do either. So she did something else. Mara started writing. Her own book. Not a response to Dr. Shaw's book. Her own story in her own words. When Healing Harms, a patient's story of therapeutic betrayal. She wrote about everything. The sessions, the book, the board's response, the legal dead end. She named Dr. Shaw, used his real name, because her story was true, and truth is a defense. She self-published, didn't expect anything, just needed to tell the truth, needed her voice heard. The book sold 700 copies, not bestseller numbers, but 700 people read her truth. 700 people who now knew what Dr. Shaw did. And some of those 700, they were his former patients. Mara started getting emails. I read your book. I think I'm in Dr. Shaw's book too. Chapter 4 sounds like my sessions. Thank you for speaking out. He used me too. I just didn't realize until I read your story. I'm filing a complaint with the board. Because of you. You gave me the courage. One by one, they came forward. Other patients, other stories, other people who had trusted him and been harvested. He asked me the same detailed questions about my assault. He took so many notes, I thought he was just thorough. I said I'd think about being in his research. He published me anyway. I recognized myself in Chapter 8. A pattern emerged. Dr. Shaw had been doing this for years. Multiple books, multiple patients, all giving him their pain, all having it sold back to them. 1 year after Mara's book was published, she got an email from a woman named Jennifer. Not the receptionist, a different Jennifer. Dear Mara, you don't know me, but I'm Dr. Shaw's wife, ex-wife, as of 3 months ago. I read your book. Then I read his. Then I started putting pieces together. There's something you need to know. Mara's heart pounded as she kept reading. Vincent didn't just use his patients for his books. He used me too. Our marriage. Our problems. Chapter 12 in The Shattered Mind, the therapist's own trauma, that's about me. About my depression. About our fights. He wrote about me like I was a case study, while we were still married. I confronted him. He said the same thing he probably told you. I changed enough details. No one will know. This helps people. But our children knew. Our friends knew. My mother calling crying after reading it because she recognized the story about my father's death, a story I told Vincent in confidence as his wife, and he put it in a book. I'm writing because I found something when I moved out. In Vincent's home office, a file cabinet full of detailed notes on patients, real names, session transcripts, everything. Stuff that should have been locked in his professional office. He kept it at home. And I found drafts, early drafts of his books, with real patients' names still in them. He only changed them at the final edit for legal protection, not ethical protection. There were also recordings, audio recordings of sessions without patient knowledge, illegal in our state. But there they were, hours and hours. I've turned everything over to the board with my own complaint about how he used our marriage, the recordings, all of it. They're reopening investigations into him, multiple cases. including yours. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I didn't protect his patients. I thought I knew him. I thought he was a good man doing important work. I was wrong. We were all wrong about him. Mara sat with that email for a long time. His wife. Even his wife wasn't safe. No one was safe. Everyone in Dr. Shaw's life was potential material. Everyone was content waiting to be extracted. 3 months later, the board made an announcement. Dr. Vincent Shaw's license was suspended pending further investigation. Multiple ethics violations, illegal recording of sessions, gross misuse of patient information. His books were pulled from shelves. His publisher dropped him. His practice closed. He fought it, hired lawyers, claimed he was being persecuted for advancing the field. But there were too many victims now. Too many voices, too much evidence. His license was revoked permanently. Mara thought she'd feel satisfaction, victory, justice. She felt tired because, yes, he was stopped, finally stopped. But the damage was done, couldn't be undone. Her trauma was still in that book, still out there, in used bookstores, libraries, PDF files floating around the internet forever. Dr. Shaw was punished, but Mara wasn't unharmed. Justice and healing aren't the same thing. 2 years after everything, Mara got one more email from Dr. Shaw. Subject line, apology. She almost deleted it. Should have deleted it. But she opened it. Mara, you know I have no reason to listen to me. But I need to say this. I was wrong. Not just legally, morally. I convinced myself that sharing these stories was about helping others, about advancing understanding. But the truth is simpler and uglier. I wanted success, recognition. I wanted to be known. And I used people who trusted me to get there. I told myself I was a good person doing important work. But good people don't exploit vulnerability. Good people don't harvest pain. I did. And I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, doesn't undo the damage, but it's true. I'm sorry. Mara read it 3 times, then deleted it. Because sorry doesn't heal what he broke. Sorry doesn't return what he stole. Sorry is just another word. And Mara was done with his words.
So here's where we are. The end of Mara's story. For now. Dr. Shaw lost everything. License, career, marriage, reputation. Mara, she's still healing. Slowly. Her way. She never went back to therapy. Maybe someday, maybe not. She learned she could heal without a witness, without someone charging $150 an hour to watch. She learned her pain is hers, to share or keep on her terms. She learned that credentials don't equal character, that trust is earned, not owed. And she learned that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who promise to keep you safe. Today, Morris still works as a nurse, still helps people. But she's different now. Wiser, harder, but also softer in the right ways. She knows her boundaries, protects her story, trusts carefully. And when she meets someone new, a friend,
a colleague, anyone. She watches. She listens. Not just to words, but to patterns. She's learned that actions over time tell the truth. Not credentials, not promises, not professional titles. Just actions. Over time. Mara's book is still out there. Not a bestseller, but it's there. And it helped people. Real people. Women who recognized themselves in her story. Men who'd been exploited by therapists too. People who thought they were alone in this specific kind of betrayal. They weren't alone. Neither are you. If this story found you at the right time or the wrong time, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're not too sensitive. Professional betrayal is real. It cuts deep. Deeper than other betrayals because we're supposed to be safe there. If a helper hurt you, therapist, doctor, counselor, anyone with power over your vulnerable parts, it's not your fault. You didn't cause it. You didn't deserve it. You trusted. That's not weakness. That's courage. And if that trust was broken, you survived. You're still here. That's not nothing. That's everything. Mara still can't cross every bridge. Some days are harder than others. But she crosses herself. No one watching, no one taking notes, no one turning her struggle into content. Just her and the bridge and the choice to keep going. There are other stories like this. Darker ones, stranger ones. Stories about trust and power and the people who weaponize both. If this one stayed with you, another one's waiting in the shadows. Because the truth is, betrayal doesn't always look like we think it will. Sometimes it wears a white coat. Sometimes it carries a notepad. Sometimes it has degrees on the wall and kind eyes. Sometimes it says, "I'm here to help." And sometimes that's the most dangerous sentence of all. Stay safe, trust carefully, and remember, your story is yours. No one gets to take it without permission. No one.